Let go. Something visible that by association or conventional represents something else that is invisible. Unseen forces at work. Something visible that by association or convention represents something else that is invisible. Alright, keep that in mind. This is part 2 of our series, Ancient Knowledge, True Chronology. We are digging in. We are being water. We are digging on it. I love all y'all. Surfing the wave. Oh, we got big plans together. But we must understand the unseen forces at work. And what is this invisible? Not all, but many ancient sightings and artwork designs symbolize complex energy flows and their behavior. All energy obeys precise laws and principles. The ancients knew that everything in existence is energy, and that no matter is a mere illusion, and that matter is a mere illusion of perception. Matter is a mere illusion of perception. All right. So what's the matter? What's the illusion? What's the perception?
The quantum unit, if you like, the real basics of the universe, quantum physics thinks are a quark. Okay?
Right.
A quark, a single unit, a single nothing. A quark is made up of 2 units which vibrate.
Yes.
Okay, think of our light and our sound that we were talking about earlier on. Okay? Because they vibrate, they are pure energy, pure frequency.
Right.
But they give the impression of being matter by creating the vibration which creates a physical response.
As you know, Mother Nature uses all kinds of mathematical languages. That when we go to understand physical phenomena, we generally find that there's some sort of mathematical underpinning to whatever the phenomena is.
Kind of like the Fibonacci sequence. That's like that series you find in nature? Like the face of a sunflower?
Wherever the spirals.
You see this math everywhere.
Fibonacci.
How did we end up in a universe like that?
Why should the world behave according to mathematical laws?
And it turns out, in fact, all of our senses appear to rely on sort of Fourier transforms, that they all seem to use the same mathematics. So again, here's evidence that the brain uses the same mathematics to decipher the sensory world as are involved in the making of a hologram, which is, as I say, not proof, but compelling evidence that something is going on there.
And not only that, it becomes easier to describe with mathematics as you go deeper and deeper into reality.
Quantum unit, if you like, the real basis earlier on.
A universe like that.
Why should the world behave according to mathematical
Let's
laws?
hear this again, people.
And it turns out, in fact, all of our senses appear to rely on sort of Fourier transforms, that they all seem to use the same mathematics. So again, here's evidence that the brain uses the same mathematics to decipher the sensory world as are involved in the making of a hologram, which is, as I say, not proof, but compelling evidence that something.
So your brain is picking up electric signals, light, spectrums, but the light itself is being, programmed itself, it's told what sequence based on, whatever the programming is that the back of our brains are being programmed, So whatever the perception is that you're programmed on your daily base, on your normal illusionary journey, these perceptions that are programmed and whatever it's called in the back of your brain, that's picking up these light spectrums. Remember, we're only seeing less than 1%. What's the other 99% that you're not seeing, that you're not perceiving? And that this person is telling you that the basis of a hologram and the same, system of this perception that's happening in your brain is essentially the same thing. So when we deal with the matrix, when we deal with this grid, when we deal with this energy, we got to deal with it from all levels and ask the questions. When did they hijack us? When did they start playing with our history and our timelines? Projecting them into the past. Did it happen in the 1500s? Did it happen in the 1200s? Did it happen in the 1800s? Did something just happen to us in the 1800s that shifted us into some other illusion? What's really going on? What's really going on? Ancient knowledge.
Things going on there.
Not only that it becomes easier to describe with mathematics, as you go deeper and deeper into reality, mathematics becomes the only way to describe reality.
So we're dealing with the Fibonacci, the golden ratio, sacred geometry, phi. We can find all kinds of mathematical formulas and sequences in nature, including the Fibonacci sequence. So let's get it.
Okay, so 1, 1, 2, 3, 5, that's the beginning of the Fibonacci sequence. Next number in the sequence, what do you think? How about 8? The number after that?
And for those that, want to understand how this sequence, these spirals, this is nature. We're talking about natural nature, spiral, DNA, energy. Remember, numbers were not invented, they were discovered. So you have 0 and 1. So 0 plus 1 is 1. 1 plus 1 is 2. 1 plus 2 is 3. 2 plus 3 is 5. All right, 3 plus 5 is 8. And these are the numbers that are correlating in this sequence, all the way up to this 144. Remember the law of nines. The 1 plus 4 plus 4 is 9. The basis, let's go.
13. The number after that, 21. So if you're getting those right along with me, then you've recognized the pattern that I wrote with the first few numbers in the Fibonacci sequence, which is this. It starts with a 1, the next number is a 1, then after that, to get the next number, you'll always add the 2 numbers that came before that. So 1 and 1 is 2, 1 and 2 is 3, 2 and 3 is 5, 3 and 5 is 8, so on and so forth. So that's recognizing the pattern that exists in the Fibonacci sequence.
Nature.
So it turns out
Creator.
that this sequence of numbers has all kinds of applications. It describes all kinds of things in the world that we see around us.
There's a conspiracy to hide this information that DNA is a Fibonacci, is an exemplification of this number or entity ratio sequence called the golden ratio. The
golden ratio, Fibonacci. They're not discovering this. They didn't invent it. They're just discovering this stuff. This is ancient knowledge. And it ties into the mathematics and the true chronology. How they say history repeats itself. He's tying this into the DNA and the DNA spirals. And damn, now you understand how important it is to be in swag frequency. 1 plus 4 plus 4, 144, 9, Fibonacci. 4 plus 3 plus 2, 9, Fibonacci. And how does this relate to the illusion, the hologram, the matrix? We got some questions to get answered, people. I'm on this journey with you, asking the questions along with you.
Ratio that proves the existence of intelligent design, or the reality of intelligent design of the cosmos. If you go to the
intelligent design of the cosmos or intelligent design of the creator. See how they just hijacked the creator with cosmos, because cosmos is chaos. They want it to be chaos and then order, not order then chaos. If they admit that there is order, then they admit that this order is choosing up. This order has a heritage. They don't want to talk about the heritage, so they don't want to talk about the order. So they say,
that to get the next number, you'll always add the two numbers that came before that. So 1 and 1 is 2, 1 and 2 is 3, 2 and 3 is 5, 3 and 5 is 8, so on and so forth. So that's recognizing the pattern that exists in the Fibonacci sequence. So it turns out that this sequence of numbers has all kinds of applications. It describes all kinds of things in the world that we see around us.
There's a conspiracy to hide this information that DNA is a Fibonacci, is an exemplification of this number or entity ratio sequence called the golden ratio, the ratio that proves the existence of intelligent design, or the reality of intelligent design of the cosmos. I mean, if you go to the golden ratio site for Wikipedia too on the same theme, they don't mention any of this stuff in nature that we're going to talk about here, that we talked about in the show 2 days ago, and that we're talking about here. They talk about how it's found in architecture and math and all this kind of stuff. They don't discuss it how it's found in the measurements of the human arm. Why not? It's just, I think I'm making, that's the point here. I think that just made sense to me, thinking this through as I say it to you. It has to be a conspiracy. How could all this be overlooked, and how could Wikipedia leave it out? It can't be, it has to be somehow that big money has pushed their influence somehow, and they've had a drive to keep this covered up or something. These can't all be coincidences, and since they're doing that with everything else, it has to be the case that there's some movement to keep this stifled. I mean, why isn't, here's another piece to add to this, why isn't this in our education system? We learn all this junk geometry, pea-brain stuff when you take geometry in high school, and they don't teach you about any of this, the golden ratio everywhere in nature. I went through elementary school, high school, college, undergrad degree in college, master's degree, and halfway through PhD, and never was any of this mentioned. And we know who controls the universities, the big money behind it, all the way up to the Illuminati Nephilim controllers.
Come on.
So this can't be, this is planned, okay? And you just wonder, it's got to, I'm almost concluding here in my mind this Davidson College site showing up number 1 in Google all the time and first page, and Wikipedia having these strange measurements which don't correlate with all kinds of these examples from academic sites I'm finding, and I'm putting them all, pictures of the screenshots in the newsletter. It's got to be a conspiracy. I mean, we could keep going compiling the evidence, it would just all lead to it. So, and if we could keep compiling evidence of it being a conspiracy, everything points towards it. I'm just throwing ideas off the top of my head. These strange sites show up at top. Wikipedia is wrong. It's covered up completely in the best-selling books about the golden ratio, which come from wealthy university professors. It's the universities and government-controlled education system absolutely covers it up. You see how everything's falling in the same direction. So when everything, all these conclusions point to the same direction, that it's covered up and hidden.
And what's the basis? The basis is that if this Fibonacci is running through all of nature, clearly there's an intelligent design and creator that is creating, and these numbers are alive, and these numbers are a part of this intelligence. And that is consciousness. But you can't just skip ahead to all the shiny shit and start creating cool ass technology and pyramids and shit and say, yeah, see, nature, look at all this. Now we can hijack the energy of the grid. That's how you fall every time. Because before you start running off playing with toys, playing with this knowledge like it's toys, pimping the knowledge, you need to understand that which is consciousness itself, which means that which is order itself. What is the intelligence? Who is the creator? And whose consciousness are you in? You claim you're conscious, right? Oh, I'm conscious. Of course I'm conscious. Of course I'm not asleep. I'm wide awake. I'm conscious. Then whose Just tell me, whose consciousness are you in? Whose consciousness? Whose intelligence? Did you create the intelligence, or are you just becoming aware of it? Now you're conscious because you're aware of the intelligence? Interesting. So have you stopped to ask intelligence, who are you? How do I serve the order? Because you're going to have to serve in this kingdom. But either it's order or it's chaos, and you're going to have to choose up. Every day you have to choose up. Phi, PHI, is a mathematical number of approximately 1.618, whose mathematical formula appears in structures of nature. 1.618 shows that our universe, or our system, was intelligently designed, not a cosmic coincidence. So first, this documentary talked about a sky daddy. Oh, anybody that believes in a sky daddy is crazy. Now they say, well, it was intelligently designed. It wasn't just a cosmic chaos or coincidence. So it must have started with an intelligence or an order, a consciousness, an intelligence. Whose consciousness are you in, since you see the math is adding up? That is intelligent consciousness. We did not come from a random primordial soup, random chaos, Big Bang, evolution, random. No transition, no fossils, but random evolution. No, we did not come from random, but intelligence, which is order, which is hey. Alright, so we're looking at some nature with this phi in it. It's 1.618. It's Fibonacci, whatever you want to title it. It's always been. It's energy, it's frequency. What frequency are you in? What order do you serve? Choose one. At the end of the day, you'll realize it's all order. And your chaos is only a projection. And this is true life. Even model agencies today use this same golden ratio phi, of the ratio of the eyes and nose, all that stuff, to choose the next models based on this sacred geometry and ancient knowledge of what attracts energy, frequency, and vibration, golden ratios. So in summary, number one, everything in existence is energy and the result of a frequency. I'll say it again. Use these, we're going to, we're getting the babies out of all kinds of hijack waters, man. We're saving that Moshe, man. We're saving the babies out the bath water. We're pulling the Moshe out the water every single time. So you're going to have to correlate this with your journey. My so-called Negro brothers and sisters. This bud is for you. Use this bud and turn that into a flower, into a garden, and feed yourselves. Everything in existence is energy. Everything is Heya. Everything is creation. It is. I am. I exist. Heya. Primitive root verb. Heya. Existence. Energy. Everything in existence is energy. All they're trying to say is this: your creator exists. And the result of a frequency. Remember, what's the matter? What is a solid? Nothing is truly solid. It's only vibrating as energy, as order, as Heya, existence, energy, frequency. Energy, frequency, vibration. That is how you simplify every plan. That is how you choose and know your way, based on energy, frequency, and vibration. That's how you know your creator exists, based on hearing, feeling the energy, frequency. Number two, ancient geometric patterns symbolize how energy flows and manifests itself. So ancient geometric patterns that we're finding, all over the place. We see them spirals symbolize how energy flows and manifests itself. That's why certain flowers grow the way they do. The energy that manifests itself obeys precise, universal laws, but they just called it intelligence. So intelligent universal laws, but they can't tell you that you have a creator. And you can't talk about the creator's laws. So we're going to dodge the hijack. We know we're talking about the creator's laws. We are not being told the truth, even by them. Let's go.
This is pretty powerful stuff that we're going over. There's no anthropologist or biologist on the planet who can explain this one. How the sunflower evolved a bunch of spirals in it. It's seed pod design, and how those spirals exactly lead to a golden ratio Fibonacci series numbers. Unbelievable. Okay, this is it. There's no question. We've all been lied to all through our undergraduate college degrees and our elementary schools and on our TVs, just by them not discussing all this. You know how many examples I have here? There's so many, and they're all this powerful. Okay? And all this was hidden from us while we were in our schools learning about, what were we learning about? Plate tectonics theory.
We damn sure weren't learning about Prester John, or the Three Indias, or that we're not spinning on a ball. No. We got to dig on this drop ourselves and teach our families right. It's our duty to escape the illusion. Whether you ever make it to any wilderness near you, whether you stay in the cities and deal with this whole era of what's to come, at least teach your families right when you know the truth. Don't be that type of person that brings down the entire ship because of your ego. They deserve to know the truth. The people you love deserve to know the truth. And we're getting the babies out of the water.
It's pretty sad case. And when it's so obviously everywhere in nature, it has to be a conspiracy. In the satanic New World Order Illuminati system we live in. They don't want you to know this stuff. Because you might realize that this reality you live in is charged with the with Yahweh. The architect's fingerprint is absolutely everywhere.
The architect, who they're calling Yahweh, we know the difference of vibration. So we're only talking about the creator of your sacred trees. We're only talking about the creator of your sacred trees. Love to J Stu. Click on that GoFundMe. $5, $10, whatever it takes, man, for the family to be straight. To make sure that the emergencies are there for them that are there right now, pronto. And we got fam that's hopping and making a flight out there, man. We're moving, man. So love to everybody moving the way you're moving. And that's all we got to say about that. But you see what we're doing. We're only connecting back to the creator. Even when they tell you that, oh, it's just the sky daddy. Then someone drops, oh, it's just about frequency and the energy of your creator, your existence.
And it's in you. You are a piece of that fingerprint. And hey, you might realize that your consciousness is also, and that there's no joke in saying you're created in God's image, and you can therefore take part in the power and creation of the intelligent designer.
We are incredibly powerful beings. Yes, we are. Kwam Yashra. And we have the ability to heal ourselves by truly believing in it. This is not wishful thinking. This is documented fact equals placebo effect.
Extraordinary phenomena of people getting better even when they've only had a dummy treatment or a sham treatment. So that can mean a sugar pill, but it can also mean sham ultrasound, where somebody just holds the machine up to your body but doesn't really switch it on, or even a fake operation, where somebody makes the incision and then pretends to do the operation but doesn't actually do anything. And the fascinating and amazing thing is, it turns out that when people get these fake sham treatments, they often get better. What's interesting about the placebo effect is it shows the amazing power of the mind over the body.
As to the origin of life, there are only two possibilities: creation or spontaneous generation. There is no third way. Spontaneous generation was disproved 100 years ago, but that leads us to only one other conclusion, that of supernatural creation. We cannot accept that on philosophical grounds, therefore...
They can't accept it at all. Supernatural. Just say we have a creator that, someone created a habitat. But then they say, well, who was it created for? Which one of us? And then they match up the history. Then they match up the records. But they all know. They get it. They know deep down inside. Everybody, I think, has a pretty good grasp deep down inside of this supernatural.
Or we choose to believe the impossible, that life arose spontaneously by chance. End quote. See what he's saying there is that science has to be conducted in a naturalistic vacuum. On philosophical grounds, we can't follow the evidence wherever it leads if it leads us outside the natural realm, to a metaphysical realm, to a supernatural realm. We have to stay within this naturalistic, materialistic box. This in 1954, and the idea here is that science will ultimately answer all of these questions. But the last thing that we want to do is jump into some kind of philosophical or theological explanation. It's interesting that 30 years later, in 1984, the late George Wald again gave us another quote. This was called Life and Mind in the Universe, and he actually was speaking at the Quantum Biology Symposium. And here's what he said 30 years after the quote I just read you. It has occurred to me lately, I must confess, with some shock at first to my scientific sensibilities, that both questions, meaning the origin of consciousness in humans and of life from non-living matter, might be brought into some degree of congruence. This is with the assumption that mind, rather than emerging as a late outgrowth in the evolution of life, has existed always as the matrix, the source and condition of physical reality. The stuff of which physical reality is composed is mind stuff. It is mind that has composed a physical universe that breeds life and so eventually evolves creatures that know and create science, art, and technology-making animals. In them, the universe begins to know itself. This again was 1984 by the late George Wald, an agnostic and materialist naturalist. But do you see where he's going there? He brings in a notion of mind. He says, as I studied these 30 years, these 3 decades since his previous statement, how does matter become mind? It doesn't. Mind must bring forth matter. You see, matter has never brought forth consciousness or rationality or mind. Information. See, now we know with the simple cell, so-called, or DNA, that this is information code. Information theory would say that this type of code, this type of ordered sequence, this type of information can only be a product of mind, of intelligence.
So what are we remembering? When we say that we are waking up, are we learning something new, or are we remembering as something being activated? Is that what the whole Maya calendar thing, December 2012 thing, was that the end of some type of, what we say, vibrational barrier, some type of Thoth spell barrier? We're in a different frequency. That which is already in you, the sequences, the order that's already programmed in your sequencing, is starting to spark remembrances, where this shit suddenly doesn't sound crazy. This shit suddenly is common sense. It's common sense that you were invaded here. It's common sense that you can't beat your invader with the system of your invader. I'll use their system and sign a bunch of shit, and my invader might give me back my land. That mind is your creator, is the spark in all of us, that is the unison, that is the unity. We are not in the illusion of seclusion. We are already united in mind. When you get with like-minded brothers, you're getting with like consciousness brothers that are on the same conscious wave as you. Now that could be whatever part of the spiral. That could be on some gangster shit, or that could be on some conscious, connecting to the creator and sacred trees, you know what I'm saying? But when it's real, it's real. Let's get a little bit more of this.
There is no other alternative. So what is George Wald saying here? Even though it shocks his scientific sensibilities, it's that in all areas of study, mind must bring forth information, matter, etc. Matter never brings forth mind. Think about that.
So what's the matter? What's the consciousness? You're all worked up, stressed out over matter, right? Your house, your car, your this, your that. Money, matter. They got you in a materialistic sequence. When you are on your own land, your only thought is, maybe I'll build more shit. Maybe I'll learn something new. Maybe I'll do that thing I was always wanting to do. Whatever you're doing is for the community. How will it benefit the community? It's no longer the illusion that you're secluded away from each other. It's the reality that you only have each other. You only have the conscious connection, the unity mind with your creator. Hey. That is what we're getting over.
The evidence to me that just cries out that there's a God is the study of DNA. DNA is a very powerful, massive information storage system. In fact, DNA that makes up our genes actually is like books of information that's read by a language system. It's absolutely phenomenal. And scientists know today that languages, a code, only come from an intelligence, and information only comes from information. Nobody's ever seen matter by itself give rise to a code. Nobody's ever seen matter by itself give rise to information.
Guys, listen, we're talking about a code. Your DNA, what they're calling, is just an energetic code of numbers and sequences. Why are you being activated? Whose sequence are you in? Whose sequences were suppressed? This is going to tie into the timeline shit. I think it was my man Irvin Reed who said, you know, when they put these timelines together, don't it look like DNA? And I said, damn. My man Irvin Reed. Y'all go subscribe to Irvin Reed, man. He's dropping that drop. So this is what we're talking about. Sequences. Is this play?
And as you look at DNA, it actually cries out, meaning God created the universe.
We all begin as a single cell the size of a period at the end of a sentence. How does that cell know how to build a body with 100 trillion cells in it, the different kinds, and each one of them is so complex, nanochemical machinery beyond our comprehension how it works, and encoded is the instruction manual. It's the manufacturer's manual how to build and operate every part of this incredible body made up of 100 trillion cells.
Furthermore, DNA is a three-dimensional molecule that is self-replicating. Each molecule is able to make an identical copy quickly and efficiently. The Lord has even programmed DNA to detect and correct replication errors. These sophisticated capabilities far exceed man's means.
God has created the DNA molecule in such a way that it is self-correcting. There are special proteins called enzymes that go up and down the DNA molecule looking for and making repairs on a minute-by-minute, second-by-second basis. God created us with a DNA code that actually has what we call editase or editorial type enzymes, just as an editor reads a newspaper or a book looking for mistakes.
Wow.
So God has created special enzymes that go up and down our DNA molecule, repairing the mistakes in ways.
So you got editors taking care of your processing sequences according to numbers that were not invented but discovered. So how ancient does it go? What are they repairing? What's being edited by these editors? Who's controlling the editors? Is it based on the frequency? If you're in 440, do you have 440 editors? Jamming you up at the root of it all? Man, come on.
These that are unbelievably complex.
Our DNA has information in it. And there is a whole field of scientific study called information science, which studies how information originates, how it's transmitted, and so on. And one of the laws of information science says that information never originates by itself in matter, never spontaneously comes about. Anytime we trace the copying of information back to its source, it always comes back to a mind. And since we have creative information in DNA, that tells me that DNA comes from intelligence. It's not something that could possibly come about through millions of years of mutations and natural selection.
Come on.
Nobody knows. Go to the university and go ask your physicists, go ask your chemists, go ask them and say this. Say, how do these crazy things called quantum particles, which act so strangely, compose the next stage up the chain? How do they compose an atom? And then ask, how does an atom compose a molecule? And how does a molecule compose a chemical? And they're going to say, we don't have any idea. Now, they'll probably get out their tinker toys and draw you or sculpt you a picture of an atom and say, this is how the atom is structured, and it gives rise to the molecule, and some molecule in question. And you say, no, Professor, how does one compose the other? I didn't ask you to show me a representation that you think is true about one and then just, about the atom, and then just say, oh, it composes the next stage up, the molecule. I want you to say, Professor, I want you to show me how it works. Tell me what is involved. Guide me through the process. And that professor is going to say, we don't know how it works. We can't.
Any of y'all in physics classes, try this shit out. You'll jam everybody up.
So the point is here, I remember we studied this a lot when I was a graduate student in physics or philosophy. We talked about this a lot. There is no known relationship between quantum particles and then the things that they allegedly compose, whether it's molecules or chemicals or worlds or rocks or whatever. Now, there's a whole lot of people who are going to tell you that that's what happens, that the quantum particles compose physical reality. Now, I'm not so sure. This is the level of knowledge, okay, not of wishful thinking. The level of knowledge is when we have empirical data and philosophical reasoning that is that sophisticated, that powerful, that ironclad, that simple, that we can say, okay, it can't be any other way. So we have to say, this is an absolute truth. This has to be a truth of things, and this can't be an illusion. So we know something. I mean, what's more enjoyable than that? Well, I can think of a couple things that are more enjoyable, but that's pretty, for someone like me who's just obsessed with knowing how things are and knowing about myself and just knowing the way reality works, and I know a lot of the listeners of this show are the same way, being able to exist at that level, that empirical and philosophical level, is really important to me, and it feels really, really good, okay? Some people don't care about stuff like this, and that's fine, just let them go. And they care about other things. Maybe they care about art, or maybe they care about television, or maybe they like Barack Obama and war, and maybe they like to be brainwashed, or who knows what. But for me, I want to know how reality works, and it makes me feel, every time I get a little bit further along, it's like I've energized my soul or something. The deepest parts of me have grown, and they feel more spiritualized. Okay, so it's very, very healthy to do this.
Matter never gives birth to a conscious organism. It's impossible. It is consciousness that operates and manifests matter, not the other way around. Anyone who tells you otherwise doesn't know what he's talking about. If you want to ignore the mountains of evidence, or that your mountains are trees, then go ahead. That's free will. So when they talk about these quantum particles and how there's no evidence that they're actually forming matter, or atoms are actually forming this material or that material, you know what I'm saying? As you go all the way down to gases and liquids, and all these things are quantum. And quantum, when it gets into that, it's just consciousness, pure consciousness. Mind. You're in a mind. You're in someone's mind. You're in a consciousness. You are that. You have order here once you know who you are. You have order in this mind. But you have, a choice to make. You can choose something else, but you're not going to exist in this mind. There ain't really free will in this mind. It's order or nothing else. It's a consciousness. It's a flow. So this mind is not telling you to kill or steal. This mind is telling you not to kill and steal. This mind is not telling you just to be lawless and be separate and do all the things you want to do different. This mind is telling you to assemble and work together, because in your unity is your freedom. And that is your free will.
And did you believe in God? Oh, yes. Do you now believe in God? Now? Difficult to answer. I know. I don't need to believe. I know.
Wow. So because, I'm assuming he's a mathematician, scientist, you know what I'm saying? Because he knows and understands the quantum and the consciousness and the intelligence of it all, he doesn't have to believe and have faith in it just because he's dug up the construct. He's like, yeah, man, there is something mighty, intelligent, and pure water about this thing. I know. We all need to know. We all need to know. And that is your knowledge.
You know, there are these peculiar faculties of the psyche, that it isn't entirely confined to space and time. Now, these facts show that the psyche, in part at least, is not dependent upon these confinements. And then what? When the psyche is not under that obligation to live in time and space alone, and obviously it doesn't, and that means a practical continuation of life, of a sort of psychical existence beyond time and space. Only ignorance deny these facts.
Do you yourself believe that death is probably the end, or do you believe that?
Well, I can't say. You see, the word belief is a difficult thing for me. I don't believe. I must have a reason for a certain hypothesis. Either I know a thing, and when I know it, I don't need to believe it. If I don't allow myself, for instance, to believe a thing just for the sake of believing it. I can't believe it. But when there are sufficient reasons for a certain hypothesis, I shall accept these reasons, naturally.
Well, now, you told us that we should regard death as being a goal,
yes,
and that to shrink away from it is to evade life and life purposes.
Yes.
What advice would you give to people in their later life to enable them to do this, when most of them must in fact believe that death is the end of everything?
When he is afraid, when he doesn't look forward, he looks back, he petrifies, he gets stiff and he dies before his time. When he is living on, looking forward to the great adventure that is ahead, then he lives. And that is about what the unconscious is intending to do. Of course, it's quite obvious that we are all going to die, and this is the sad finale of everything. But nevertheless, there is something in us that doesn't believe it, apparently. But this is merely a fact, a psychological fact. Doesn't mean to me that it proves something. It is simply so. And I think if you think along the lines of nature, then you think properly.
Carl Gustav Jung got the drop. The kingdom is within. So you see how he's philosophizing. He's reconning. Now he knows. And what does he know? That the Creator exists. Hey. And that who looks outside is a dreamer. You're looking outside yourself. This is who they are. They're abstract. They're projecting. They're looking outside of themselves. You have all the energy and the voice inside. You must go inside to do what? Awaken. Who looks inside awakens. You awaken to your sequence. You awaken to your Fibonacci, your design, your pattern. Gustav got the drop. Alright. So we know where we're at right now. I just wanted to get another piece of this. We're going to keep it flowing. You know what I mean? Y'all go check out the whole drop, man. Phil Harris, this cat right here, got it loaded. A few other people got it loaded, I believe. So it's on the site when you go to historic drop. Now let's jump from there right back into our timeline drop while we're on that wave, while we're just vibing. Let's just keep going. Let's talk about maps, baby.
Древние географические карты тоже могут рассказать много.
Ancient maps can also tell a lot of interesting things. After all, what is a map? A representation of humanity's view of the world at the time it was created. So don't get caught up in maps thinking that you're seeing all the land that is or ever was, that will be. You're just seeing somebody's projection, man. You're just seeing somebody's representation. And what is their intention?
Много интересно. Ведь что такое карта? Это представление человечества о мире в то время, когда она создавалась. Естественно предположить, что...
It is natural to assume that all began with primitive patterns, such as these here. Alright, so we're getting here. Right, we got into our patterns, our Fibonacci. Now we're getting to the patterns of how you see some of these ancient maps. Let's go.
Все начиналось с примитивных схем,
мало
напоминающих карты как таковые. Но развивалось мореплавание,
But navigation was developed, wars were fought, and trade links were established, and along with them, new information about lands and countries. Where do you fit all that on the ball with this new information? How can you get all this new information on the ball when you have more land and more worlds? You are in a new world.
торговые связи, и появлялись новые сведения о землях и странах. Сведения эти были очень важны для каждой страны.
Information was very important for every country, so they needed to map. And with every new generation, maps were becoming better and more accurate. Okay.
Поэтому они обязательно наносились на карты, и с каждой эпохой карты становились все точнее и совершеннее. Вот, например, очень редко...
For example, a very rare map in 1522. I see Tartaria. Hope y'all are digging the wave on the Prester John. Izzy Genghis Khan, Zingis Chan, King David, Alexander the Great, Raja Chola II, Jadaran. Izzy Mansa Musa, Izzy Montezuma. Is he all these things on these timelines? Is he all the same person projected in different places under different names? For example, a very rare map in 1522, Europe and Asia are very different from a modern image. Greenland is depicted as a peninsula of Europe, Groenland, when Greenland is actually, now they're calling, with the New World or the Old World. But you see Tartaria, the Tartars,
Карта 1522 года, составленная Акупарио. Европа и Азия сильно отличаются от современных изображений. Остров Гренландия изображен как полуостров Европы. Черное море перекошено по вертикали. Каспийское море практически неузнаваемо. Китай вообще отсутствует.
The Black Sea is skewed vertically. The Caspian Sea is almost unrecognizable. China is generally absent. A map of Cornelius Nicholas in 1598 also contains distortions, but they are already much less than the previous map.
1598 года тоже грешит искажениями.
Tartaria. Man, they can't just wipe out this and then call it something else, and you think this is crazy. Let's go.
Но их уже намного меньше, чем на предыдущей карте. А это уникальный памятник.
And this, a unique moment of European cartography, a large globe blah, made famous by Dutch firm Blah in the late 1600s by the order of Swedish King Karl the 11th. Blah. This blah, this ball of blah, this bayal, babble, bayal, ball. You're on a ball, a bayal. You're under the sorcery of a bayal ball.
Европейской картографии большой глобус Блау, сделанный знаменитой голландской фирмой Блау в конце 17 века по заказу шведского короля Карла XI. Невооруженным глазом видно, что...
To what the naked eye can see, it is much closer to reality than the previous map, the outline, except for the bleh. Bleh. The outlines of the continents have become much more precise. There are many new lands.
Он намного больше приближен к реальности, чем предыдущие карты. Очертания континентов стали намного точнее, появилось много новых земель. На этом примере хорошо видно.
These examples clearly show that for each new era of maps, the number of erroneous geographical information decrease and the number of correct features increase.
Что на каждой новой, более поздней карте количество ошибочных географических сведений уменьшалось, а количество правильных увеличивалось. Это похоже на то, как рисуют
This is similar to how children draw according to their maturity. The way a 6-year-old would draw the world around us is very simple and naive.
В мере своего взросления. 6-летний малыш нарисует окружающий мир очень просто и наивно. Деревья, палочки, люди, кругляши, несоизмеримо большие цветы и сказочные животные.
A 10-year-old child's proportions and are bound to be more realistic, with people already more or less similar to humans. Fantastic characterizations most likely will not be present.
На рисунке 10-летнего ребенка пропорции становятся более реальными. Люди уже более-менее похожи на людей, а сказочных героев, скорее всего, не будет совсем. И, наконец, 16-летний подросток постарается
will try to draw all the details and features as closely to how they are seeing. Confusion of the sequence of these steps is almost impossible.
Рисовать все детали, движения, взгляд. Перепутать последовательность этих рисунков практически невозможно. Также можно сравнить и географические карты. Но для серьезного исследования только зрительного сравнения недостаточно.
But for serious study, only visual comparisons are not enough. It is necessary to obtain scientific data. Tartaria. Oh, man. Let's go. Which leads us to the method of Anatoly Fomenko, which he calls the proper method of chronological ordering and dating of ancient maps. So the true chronology, chronological ordering, and dating of ancient maps by Anatoly Fomenko. You have to dig on this yourselves. Tartaria. That's our little sub-theme as we go into Prester John of the 3 NDs, part 13. Beautiful ride.
Сделать метод Анатолия Фоменко, который он назвал методом правильного хронологического упорядочивания и датировки древних географических.
Which leads us to the method of Anatoly Fomenko, which he calls a proper, chronological. Let's go. Take a few ancient maps, for example, a map Shedel made, as the historians believe, in 1493. Grand Tartary? I keep seeing Tartaria, man. And if you look down there, it looks like Arabenia. So that's, remember we have the maps calling Africa Arabenia, Abyssinia, Grand Tartary. So it looks like mostly all of Asia. They just call Tartaria. So the Tartars are really just Asiatics, period. And then, of course, you have your sects and your groups and all that different things. Take a few ancient maps, for example, a map Shedel made, as the historians believe, is the 1493 map. Man, I love these maps, man. I love these maps. I'm like really a kid in a candy store, literally, with all these maps. a map Peter Apian supposedly made in 1520, a map Solanusu made in 1538, and a map from the Saturn Mercadora and Hondias in 1607. All right.
1520 года. Карту Салинуса 1538 года выпуска и карту из атласа Меркатора Хондиуса 1607 года. Каждой карте присвоен порядковый номер в зависимости от официальной даты.
Each map will be assigned a serial number according to the official date of its appearance. Next, we need to get a full description of each map. Okay, I'm trying to let it go, man, but I'm just looking at these maps, man.
Далее надо получить полную характеристику каждой карты. Для этого составляется таблица, в которой вносится...
To do this, we compile a table containing all the information about the map. It is a flat map. Is it a flat map or a globe? Global or regional? Okay.
Все сведения о карте. Плоская эта карта или глобус, всемирная или региональная.
The orientation of the parts of the world, the location of the poles, the equator, the characteristics of the seas, countries, and so on.
В таблицу обязательно вносится расположение полюсов, экватора и климатических зон, описание морей, стран и так далее.
This table of geographical features, Anatoly Fomenko called a map code. In fact, it is a formalized characterization of maps.
Географических признаков Анатолий Фоменко назвал карт-код. Фактически она является формализованной моделью карты. Такие же таблицы составляются для...
Same characterization is made for the other maps we are comparing. All right, pay attention.
Остальных карт, выбранных для сравнения. Теперь собранные сведения позволяют построить график. По горизонтали отметим порядковый номер.
Now, for the collected information used to construct the chart horizontally, we note the serial number of the map, the vertical, the number of the abnormal features. Let's say there are 24 at most.
Карты, по вертикали число неправильных признаков карты. Допустим, их 24. С каждой новой картой неправильные признаки, то
With each new map, abnormal features will gradually subside, and what's right, such as the exact shape of the coast, will remain.
Несоответствующие реальной географии будут постепенно убывать, а правильные, например, пролив или точное очертание берега, будут оставаться. Таким образом, общее
Thus, the
число
total number
неправильных
of abnormal
признаков
features will
будет
diminish, and the
уменьшаться,
graph
и на
will curve
графике
going
получится
down.
кривая, идущая вниз.
Потом этот же метод был применен.
Then the same method was applied to the maps of antiquity in early medieval period. Here, where all that. Here's the payoff. I know you sat through that. Some don't care about chronology. Some don't care about chronographers or maps. But if you care about maps, if you care about these recycling projections, these phantoms, let's go. It turned out that the resulting dates are not absolutely consistent with what we know from modern tables. It always keeps going back to these 1200s, 1300s, 1400s.
Античности, как в раннем Средневековье. Оказалось, что возникающие датировки абсолютно не согласуются с тем, что мы знаем из современных таблиц. Ну, скажем, знаменитая карта Птолемея.
For example, the famous maps of Ptolemy, supposedly and antique maps of 200 AD came out to being in the 1500s, moving up the time axis at least 1,000 years. So they're going from this 200 AD, but they came out to being in this medieval time.
Якобы античные карты II века нашей эры попали примерно в 15-16 века нашей эры, сдвинулись вверх по оси времени, по крайней мере, на 1000 лет. Далее, скажем, карты Гесиода.
Furthermore, for example, maps of Hesiod or Euclid also proved to be far from the 5th or 3rd century BC and were in the Middle Ages during the 1200s.
Евклида тоже оказались отнюдь не из минус 5-3 века, а тоже попали в средние века, в эпоху 12-13 веков нашей эры. Знаменитая Пикингерова
The
карта.
famous Putinger map, an antique map of the Roman Empire, also has risen along the time scale in places in the 1400s. So you got this Roman Empire, which seems to have its legitimacy around these 1400s, 1300s, 1200s, but yet it's projected in the past thousands of years. And this is how you're learning your history in elementary or grammar or grammar or spell or charm school.
Античная карта Римской империи тоже поднялась по оси времени и попала, например, в 15 век нашей эры.
Перед нами известная...
Before us, the famous map of Hans Rusted in 1480. All right, so this is the famous map of Hans Rusted in 14 AD. Now, I know you see this tree. It just looks like a giant tree. So you know we got that tree of life popping. Clearly, it doesn't even look like a map, but just a beautiful picture. In principle, this corresponds to the development of cartography in the 1400s.
Карта Ганса Рюста 1480 года. Хорошо видно, что это даже не карта, а просто красивый рисунок. В принципе, это соответствует развитию картографии в 15 веке. Теперь для сравнения.
Right here you see Jerusalem. Tree. Something's in the tree. Foundations. You know, I was talking to some bros, man, and it's like, these mountains are trees, right? So the roots are connected underground, man. And do these roots have anything to do with the foundation of the earth? Does that have anything to do with the roots of your trees? How low does it go? I mean, if they reached up to heaven, if they reached up to the firmament, could they reach all the way down? Now, for comparison, we take one of the so-called ancient maps of Ptolemy. The contradiction is obvious. This map, allegedly from 200 AD, is consistent with the geography of the era of Columbus.
Ну, из так называемых древних карт Птолемея противоречие становится очевидным. Карта якобы II века нашей эры соответствует представлению о географии эпохи Колумба. Получается, что намного...
It seems as though much before the 1400s, in times of antiquity, mankind created detailed maps of sufficiently high detail. So much before, they're saying, the 1400s, these maps were created with this high detail. So what is it today?
Раньше 15 века, во времена античности, человечество создавало...
I know y'all saw that those two F's, man. Hold on, let's back it up.
Карта якобы II века нашей эры соответствует представлению о географии эпохи Колумба. Получается, что намного раньше 15 века, во времена...
Africa, right? And then in their old English, those two F's become S's. And you know how they look like F's with their S's? And it becomes Assyria. And then we have Assyria, Abyssinia. What does it mean? All right. Love to the brother Lex for that. And so much more, man. We're putting all this together to understand what's before our eyes. It seems as though this map, much before the 1400s, in times of antiquity, mankind created detailed maps of sufficiently high detail. Go on. And this Arabia Fuel, this is what they called Africa. Arabia or Arabia Fuel. You see India down here. I mean, you know. Arabianese, Arabini Fuel, Arabinia, Moors. Let's go.
высокого уровня. Потом вдруг утратила все знания и навыки и вернулась.
Then he suddenly lost all knowledge and skills and went back to a primitive state after the 1400s? So who had to drop?
К примитивным схемам. Однако человечество не переживало.
However, mankind has not experienced any global catastrophes. Its development was not interrupted, and the new generations did not have start their knowledge from scratch. So they did not have to start their knowledge from scratch. So if we didn't have to start over and there was no catastrophe or interruption, then why, oh why, did these cartographers suddenly just go back to a primitive state?
Глобальных катастроф. Его развитие не останавливалось, а новым поколениям не приходилось познавать мир с чистого листа. Откуда тогда взялось якобы древнее?
From where did these supposedly ancient yet rather realistic maps originate? On this paradox, cartographic historians themselves cannot explain. So they cannot explain where these supposedly ancient yet rather realistic maps originated. I mean, they're saying they can't explain it. I don't know if they can or not. I'm sure somebody has an explanation. But this is for you to research. Is this explainable? Can they explain where these things came from?
Рождение достаточно реалистичных географических карт. Такой парадокс развития картографии.
But we can come to an explanation using the method for ordering maps by flamenco. So we're going to get into the mathematics of it all. We're going to get into the patterns, the Fibonacci.
Зато объяснение дает метод упорядочивания географических карт Фоменко. Именно этот метод.
This method allows us to calculate the true time of occurrence of the so-called ancient maps of Ptolemy. They were created not earlier than the 1400s and 1500s. All that history from the 200 AD, all that writing, you're saying, oh, this was written in 200, all that New Testament was written in this, all these maps were done here. All this was recent. All this was recent.
Метод позволяет вычислить истинное время появления так называемых древних карт Птолемея. Они были созданы не ранее 15-16 веков нашей эры. А это значит...
This means that the traditional chronology is subject to not just negligence, but errors of hundreds and sometimes thousands of years, people. Thousands of years. Yeah, I wish I can zoom in on this little section and what they were calling it here. It's interesting. It looks like they call it India up top and India down here. Interesting.
Значит, что в традиционной хронологии допущена не просто небрежность. Ошибка составляет сотни, а иногда и тысячи лет. Вряд ли кто-то поверит, что маленький ребенок, который только-только с 16 веков нашей эры. А это значит, что в традиционной хронологии допущена не просто небрежность. Ошибка составляет сотни, а иногда...
Trying to get what that said, but India is superior, so.
И тысячи лет.
It is unlikely that someone would believe that a small child who just learned to keep a pencil in hand could draw an accurate and vivid portrait of a man.
Верить, что маленький ребенок, который только-только научился держать в руке карандаш, мог нарисовать точный и яркий портрет человека. А потом вместо новых
And then instead of the correct picture, once again, he began to primitively draw trees and people out of proportion. So, how do you go from this to something else that is out of proportion? And this is what these researchers are saying happened in this particular cases with our maps. Same as with the timelines.
Опять стал чертить корявые деревья палки и не
Who is Prester John?
пропорционально большие цветы. Такая последовательность маловероятна. Скорее всего, детские рисунки просто перемешались.
Such a sequence is unlikely. Most likely, these children's drawings are just mixed. And so they are. It's the only explanation. Mixed with what?
И это единственное объяснение.
Phantom dynasties. We got some of this last time.
Среди историков давно бытует мнение, что
So among historians is a long-held perception that sometimes a chronicler, while describing the recent rulers, would also make mention of other long-dead ancient kings. So while they might be talking about recent rulers, they're also mentioning other long-dead ancient kings. So how are these long-dead kings fitting into this recent history of the chronicler? These things are overlapping histories. Now, is it just happening by happenstance, or are they all literally the same person? Are these timelines on top of each other? These perceptions on top of each other? These are the questions we're asking.
Летописцы приписывали своим правителям-современникам качества и деяния каких-то других, давно умерших древних царей. Традиционная история
The traditional story assures us that such strange fascination with members of antiquity was widespread amongst chroniclers.
уверяет нас, будто такое странное увлечение летописцев стариной было широко распространено. Из-за этого в истории появилось
Because of
довольно
this, there are
много
many instances where biographies will also mention ancient rulers. Okay, so
похожих
couple more
между
minutes.
собой биографий древних правителей. Чтобы выявить
To
такие
track such
повторы,
reoccurrences, it is not enough to simply examine a large number of historical biographies. This information must somehow be quantified. So how do we quantify?
достаточно просто изучить большое количество исторических биографий. Полученную информацию надо как-то систематизировать. Для этого Анатолий
To do this, Anatoly Fomenko developed a table which he called a form code. In the form of a questionnaire, one can apply any chronicle or biography. So we're getting some more of the method. This is just going through the part 3 of this. I suggest you go there and check out all the parts. We're going to jump in and do some belly flopping, but definitely go dig on it and see how it lines up, especially in our investigation of Prester John, Genghis Khan, Ong Khan, Alexander, King David. Let go.
Фоменко разработал таблицу, которую назвал анкет-код. В виде такой анкеты можно записать любую летописную биографию, а затем исследовать ее независимо от
And then
субъективных
investigate it despite the questionable assessments of the chronicles. Okay.
Состоит анкет-код из
So this
30
form code consists of 34 items and contains details and information about a ruler.
4 пунктов и содержит подробную информацию о правителе, его пол,
His gender, lifespan, duration of reign, status, and emperor, military leaders, religious leader,
длительность жизни, период правления, его статус, император, полководец, религиозный вождь, причина смерти правителя, стихийные бедствия,
cause of death, natural disasters, astronomical phenomena, wars, conspiracies, and other things that happened during his reign.
астрономические явления, войны, заговоры и многое другое, что произошло в период его правления. Анатолий Фоменко проделал
Anatoly then did a tremendous job. He created questionnaire codes of several hundred major ancient rulers.
грандиозную работу. Он составил анкет-коды нескольких сотен основных древних правителей. И теперь достаточно просто взять любой
Now we can
анкет-код
simply
и
take any
сравнить
form
его с
code and
другим.
compare it with the
Очень
others.
важно, что с помощью этого
It is
метода
very important that with this method, not only the individuals' biographical chronicles can be compared, but whole dynasties of rulers. So all the entire dynasty, just like you saw with the parallel timelines, they're lining up next to each other. And just like Irvin Reed said, they're fitting together, man, like a spiral of DNA.
можно сравнить не только отдельные летописные биографии, но и целые династии правителей. Выберем для сравнения 2 династии.
We can then compare two dynasties. From each dynasty, we can choose, for example, 20 profile codes of kings who ruled successively, that is, one after another. Pay attention.
В каждой династии выберем, например, по 20 анкет-кодов царей, правивших последовательно, то есть друг за другом. Эту последовательность
Such a sequence,
назвал...
Anatoly Fomenko called a flow of form codes. First, he compared the form codes of the first ruler of a dynasty and then the first ruler of another dynasty.
Поток анкет-кодов. Сначала сравниваются анкет-коды первого правителя одной династии и первого правителя другой династии. Затем сравниваются анкет-коды следующего правителя первой династии и следующего правителя второй династии и так далее. При таком сравнении
Such a comparison is important to know that if only two comparable biographies are found, it doesn't mean anything. We can find many similar biographies in history.
Что если похоже всего лишь две сравниваемые биографии, это еще ничего не значит. Таких похожих биографий в истории можно найти немало. И совершенно ясно, что делать
And it's clear that no chronological conclusions follow from this.
Логические выводы отсюда не следуют. Чтобы вычислить,
To
насколько
calculate how similar two dynasties are, Anatoly Fomenko has developed a special factor which is used to compare each set of questionnaires codes.
Другу две династии, Анатолий Фоменко разработал специальный коэффициент. Он используется для сравнения каждой пары анкет-кодов. Для большей наглядности
For
сравнения...
clarity, we'll compare flows of form codes, then that can be represented graphically.
Потоки анкет-кодов можно изобразить графически. Отметим по горизонтали порядковый номер каждого выбранного нами
So note the horizontal serial number of each chosen, our ruler's first dynasty, and the vertical, the duration of the tenure in years. Fomenko calls it a dynasty profile.
Правителя первой династии, а по вертикали время его правления в годах. Фоменко называет это профилем династии. Такой профиль можно
Such a profile
построить...
can be constructed for any kind of dynasty, and such a profile will be particular only to it. From this profile, a dynasty can always be identified.
Для любого правящего рода, и он будет присущ только ему. По этому профилю его всегда можно будет идентифицировать. Подобный график
We construct such a graph for the second dynasty. Now the resulting forms can be compared. Byzantine 602 to 1448, and England 865 to 1328.
Теперь полученные графики можно сравнить. Если профили двух
If the
династий
profiles of
мало,
two dynasties differ little from each other, then they represent the same real dynasty.
отличаются друг от друга, значит, они изображают одну и ту же реальную династию. Этот метод Фоменко
Fomenko calls this the principle of small distortions. He assumes that the chroniclers, though sometimes mistaken in the duration of the ruler's reign, were still fairly accurate.
основан на принципе малых искажений. Математик вычислил, что летописцы, хотя иногда и ошибались в длительности правления царей, но все-таки очень незначительно. Следовательно, профили, полученные на основе летописей, можно считать...
Consequently, profiles obtained on the basis of these records can be considered to be a fair portrayal.
весьма индивидуальными.
One more minute is.
С рождения у каждого человека
All right,
есть
so from
признаки...
birth, every person has characteristics that set them apart from other people on the planet or plane, not only from his contemporaries, but also from his descendants and
которые
ancestors.
отличают его от всех остальных людей на планете. Отличают не только от современников, но и от тех, кто жил или будет жить. Как определить?
How can we compare two profiles of people? The names are different biographies, different
Тот же человек
documents.
изображен на 3 фотоснимках. Или это совершенно разные люди? Имена разные, биографии разные, документы тоже разные. Внешнее сходство, но внешность можно изменить.
Can we go by resemblance? Appearance can be changed, hair can be dyed, mustache and beard glued, plastic
Покрасить
surgery.
волосы, приклеить усы и бороду, сделать пластическую операцию, наконец. Но ДНК и отпечатки пальцев изменить
But DNA and fingerprints cannot be changed. They are individual and unique. Therefore, having a sufficient database, you can always find out what a person is behind a new appearance or name.
Они индивидуальны и неповторимы. Поэтому, имея достаточную базу данных, всегда можно выяснить, что за человек скрывается за новой внешностью и новым именем. Профиль династии выше...
So dynasty profiles calculated by mathematics are like fingerprints or DNA.
Математиками все равно, что отпечатки пальцев или ДНК человека. И если вдруг в каком-то
And if suddenly some sort of historical document reveals a new, supposedly unknown dynasty, you just need to create its profile and compare it with profiles from the database. Find out where the phantoms are.
Обнаруживается новая, якобы неизвестная династия, надо просто воссоздать ее профиль и сравнить с профилями из базы данных. На этом графике изображены профили двух правящих династий. Древнего Иудейского
The
царства
ancient kingdom of
VI
Judah
века
and the Eastern Roman Empire. Buckle up.
до нашей эры и Восточной Римской империи IV-VII веков нашей эры.
Any questions? Phantoms, replicas, replica, another replica. So what's the real one? Which one is the real? Is it the Judas PC? This Roman Empire? I'm sure there's more. All the way up to Prester John. Is that why he's matching up with Alexander and King David? Khan.
А это профили правящих династий средневековой Священной Римской империи X-XIII века.
All right, so now we have the medieval Holy Roman Empire from 900 to 1300s. And then the medieval Habsburg Empire. Okay.
И средневековой империи Габсбургов XIII-XVII веков. Если расположить эти профили по разные стороны оси, они практически симметричны.
If we arrange these profiles on opposite sides of the axis, they are almost symmetrical. Does this mean they belong to the same dynasty? Are they the same?
Что же получается? Они принадлежат одной династии.
Yes.
Зрительную схожесть.
Visual similarity should be questioned. To do this, we need to calculate the probability of accidental coincidence. Is this play?
Надо проверить. Для этого надо вычислить вероятность совпадения этих пар династий. Оказывается, она ничтожно мала. Есть примерно один шанс.
There's roughly one chance in 100 billion for a dynasty of kings in the different times and different times and different times and different countries to be so similar to each other. Roughly one chance in 100 billion. So what you just saw with Judah 600 and the Holy Roman Empire and 900, all that, it's 1 in 100 billion chance for that to happen. That's why they're so sure and confident mathematically, like, yo, unless this is the 1 out of 100 billion chance, these are the same damn dynasties. And someone took it in the medieval times and started projecting them back, 300 years, 1,000 years, 1,800 years. They've changed your times and laws.
Что в разное время в разных странах жили династии царей, похожие друг на друга, как две капли воды. В официальной истории таких
In the official dynastic history, such duplicates are found quite a lot.
Были обнаружены пары династий.
We have found pairs of dynasties which are now considered to be totally different, ruling in different countries and different times.
Считаются абсолютно различными, которые правили в разных странах, в разные
For example, a dynasty of rule in ancient Rome and another in medieval Europe, like we just saw.
Одна династия правила в античном Риме, вторая в Европе средневековой. Но тем не менее, наш метод неожиданно...
Nevertheless, our method unexpectedly showed that the graphs of these dynasties are strikingly similar, so close that we could automatically associate a pair of dynasties as the same. They are the same. They are the same. What does it mean?
Показал, что графики правлений этих династий поразительно похожи, близки, в той же мере, как близки заведомо зависимые пары династий. Такие пары мы назвали дубликатами.
Such pairs we call duplicates, phantoms. They turned out to be quite a lot, a few dozen. So we got some of this last time. So now I just wanted to catch us up to where we were. And let's get this last part right here. So these phantoms and duplicates are real spill. When we dig up Prester John and he's lining up with King David and he's lining up with the Khan, the great Khan, and he's lining up with Alexander and he's lining up with Mansa Musa, don't you see the duplicates and the phantoms?
Довольно много. Несколько десятков.
Anatoly.
Вот так этот метод показал, что...
That's because this method showed that some of the ruling dynasties were simply copied in history, duplicated only on paper. That's because this method showed that some of these ruling dynasties were simply copied, simply copied in history. Simply copied in history, Negro. Duplicated only on paper, my so-called Negro brothers and sisters. How could this happen?
Некоторые правящие династии были просто размножены в истории. Размножены исключительно на бумаге. Как такое могло случиться? Скорее всего, по двум причинам.
And then we got into this last time, likely for two reasons, on purpose or on accident. So you be the judge. So we're going to make our dismount. Still with the chronology, I want to get a little bit of this Sylvie Ivanawa. Talking about the same new chronology. And this goes deep, man. It goes into a little bit of the ayahuasca insights, which is back to this indigenous drop. Indigenous South America, Mexico drop. All right, so let's get it. This is only part 2. We got a lot more to cover of the true chronology and ancient knowledge and what's really popping, man, with times and laws. Let's go.
I was also surprised to learn about a long history of intelligent scholars who have noticed these flaws. I mean, even Isaac Newton had doubts, right?
Yes, he was still closer to the time when the true history was more or less known. He had access to much more genuine documents than we do, because the cleanup of the genuine old books was an ongoing task through the centuries. Now, most of them are gone missing, but at Newton's time, this was not the case. Still now and then you could get hold of real old books. Yes.
Yeah, they've done a better job over time, gotten more refined at locking down that old information and making sure there's no holes in the story. I wrote down a couple of descriptions from your video of the scholars who have noticed this and have been discredited, just so people can get an idea that this isn't just one or two fringe researchers. There's this guy, Gunnar Heinsohn, lived in Germany, studied philosophy, economics, and sociology in Berlin, obtained his PhD in 1973. Since then, he's taught at the University of Bremen in Germany. He was one of the first German critics of chronology, and in 1982 co-founded, together with 3 others, the Society for the Reconstruction of the History of Humankind and Nature. His first book, The Sumerians Never Existed, is based on clear historical and, above all, stratigraphical facts that shows the history of Mesopotamia and Egypt is 2,000 years too long, the mistakes being due to dates in the Bible. I mean, that's impressive. A lot of people are hearing this kind of thing for the first time and never really considered that there could be this big of a manipulation and it could be this recent in our history. But outside of the English-speaking world and the American bubble, there's a lot of people that seem to be challenging this.
Yes, and it's not a new thing. The new chronology is not a new idea. Before it was known maybe under the name of
look at that tree. Look at that tree.
Artificial 1,000 years. that was a keyword many years ago. Many people started noticing that 1,000 years are very strange. They couldn't find any buildings that were surely built during these 1,000 years. Also, for 1,000 years, all progress of humanity kind of stopped, even on continents that supposedly developed in complete isolation. Even in the fabricated American history, there are dodgy 1,000 years.
Yes.
And there were other librarians and other scholars who have been noticing through the centuries that the books of supposedly ancient authors, ancient Greek and Roman authors, were not at all ancient. They were just books written by their contemporary fellows. And this has been going on. And this is extremely, extremely important because these sources are nowadays quoted as something absolutely indisputable.
Right.
On, for example, channels like history channels and so on. And that's where people gather the impression about their history.
It is. And can you explain to us how we get our mainstream story of history? I think most people think of it as an ever-changing culmination of human knowledge, but you talk about this official chronology, which was just established in the 16th and 17th century, as really almost entirely based on the work of this guy, Joseph Scaliger, and a couple of his students. Is that right?
Yes, they compiled this semi-truthful history. There are many grains of truth in it, just it is difficult to find out what is exactly truthful and what is not. And after that it was imposed as an official history with the power of the authority of the governments. And that's what people... And this is what most people nowadays do not understand. When they see historic documentaries on the famous channels, they think that this is the opinion that is held by the majority of scientists. But this is not the case. This is the opinion of scientists that are allowed to appear on such channels. There are many even mainstream scientists that hold completely radical opinions. Most people don't even know that many scientists think that actually monkeys evolved from humans.
Whoa.
People rarely hear about that. Well, I'm not saying I support this theory, but there are scientists who have serious reasons to suggest such a hypothesis, and it exists. But people don't hear about it.
And so, what's the justification for this? I guess at the time, this fake history was created to justify the ruling families that were taking over Europe at the time?
Well, maybe that's from the point of view of the ruling families. Maybe that's how they saw it. But if we have to see it from a higher perspective, who organized all this and who made this master plan and implemented it, holding authority over all these royal families who did the hard work on the ground, so to say.
Listen up.
These are different entities that I call parasites in my... I had to coin a new term.
Wow.
Right.
And I think they're of... how to say, an origin that is not indigenous to our planet.
Uh-oh.
Right, yeah. It sounds a little bit like the archons of Gnosticism. There seems to be a lot of parallels there.
Yes, to some extent.
Okay, so in the series, you do call these perpetrators the parasites, and you start the story with the ancient advanced civilization of Atlantis, saying these parasites came and destroyed the culture from within, leading to the survivors of Atlantis going out to the indigenous cultures and teaching them knowledge and trying to rebuild. What can you tell us about these parasites?
Wow.
Who are they, and do you know where they come from?
Well, that is one topic that I have decided on purpose not to get into in my documentary, because I always tell people when they ask me about aliens and other races, it is best to see it for yourself. There are too many sources online, but I think it is different when one experiences the things firsthand. There are methods for those who are really keen to do it. My path was ayahuasca. Others may take a different path, but I'm not gonna give out details. I think everybody should discover for himself or herself.
Okay, yeah. Ayahuasca I'm fairly familiar with. I haven't got a chance to do it myself, but I have smoked DMT. I know ayahuasca is far different, but can you tell us a little bit about how it ties into this, how it might have helped to flesh out this story for you?
Well, ayahuasca first of all gave me the clarity of mind that is required for this research that I have embarked on recently. It happened this year that I started doing it on such a scale. And I'm not doing it alone. I'm mostly compiling the work of many other researchers. Now I'll try to organize something of my own, again with the help of the viewers of my YouTube channel. But that requires clarity of mind, and I'm a completely different person after I spent this 1 or 2, whatever, 1.5 year or two in the jungle. I'm thinking in a completely, how to say, my software was upgraded so much because I drank almost every day for a long period, and then I stopped drinking. And the difference was just indescribable. First of all, clarity of mind, and second of all, I don't have an official degree in history. And this is very good in my case, because I think the most important qualification now is to be able to rise above all the preloaded information that one gets from school and education. The less one knows about it, the better. Because even we all do it, all alternative history researchers, we take so many things for granted. For example, if you open YouTube, you will find thousands of videos telling you see Sacsayhuaman and all these amazing megaliths in Peru. They have nothing to do with the Incas, because the Incas were primitive, they couldn't do all this. And the conclusion they reach is, okay, there was a civilization, we don't know anything about it, now it has disappeared, and that's where the story ends. But I question even more. I say, but do we really know how were the Incas, and how do we know that? Actually, they believe, those mainstream scholars, that they have just seen lying to them that there was no ancient civilization, although it's obvious that there was an advanced civilization, so many megaliths and other amazing artifacts. So, first of all, these researchers plainly say the official history is no good, but then they believe it in terms of the stories that it tells them about the Incas. But if we continue pursuing this example, the full history of the kingdom of the Incas is extremely strange. They were always at war on all fronts. Nowadays we're supposedly more advanced. A nation nowadays wouldn't be able to finance and support so much war on so many fronts with such numbers of population. They were not many, according to this very same mainstream history. So they were all the time at war. They were building at an amazing rate that we cannot replicate with our so-called advanced technology. The full thing is basically a joke. So what I'm saying, it's time to question even more. I don't say the Incas built all these megaliths. I'm saying we don't know at all. There is a chance that the Incas were in connection with the people who built the older megaliths. Yes, we can see that they are older because often on their ruins the Incas built their stuff on top in their typical Inca style. But there are some sites where the level of technology is kind of in between the level of the Incas and the good old megaliths. So I'm pursuing that line of thinking that it is possible that the Incas were in touch with the builders of the old megaliths.
Right, and that is an important point that a lot of alternative researchers make this case that we apparently were more smart than we are now, and we've devolved ever since then. And the evidence does support that, because with these megalithic sites, the older layers underneath the structures, they seem more detailed and advanced, and the newer layers seem more primitive. And that backs up that idea that we've been slowly going downhill, maybe ever since this point that manipulation took place.
Oh, I think it started much earlier. This manipulation that I'm talking about in the Survivor series is during the last few thousand years. I think it started much earlier, during the time of Atlantis. And both parasites and some good people from Atlantis, they both survived that terrible destruction of the island. So the two parties were there since that time, but in the beginning the survivors, they knew their history, and this active erasing of history started only in the recent century when people became dumb enough to buy it.
Wow.
And so in this paradigm, we're putting Atlantis at about 7,000 to 10,000 years ago, is that right?
No. At this time I have no dating for Atlantis. I'm working hard on it. I want to achieve some really scientific results with combined data from remote viewing, past life regressions, and reliable old texts. But for now, no, I wouldn't place Atlantis 7,000 years ago, maybe 20 or 30. But I think 7 is probably you're getting the date of 7,000 years ago. That still is the starting point of some very old calendars, and that was some important battle that the survivors had with, I don't know even whom, somewhere probably in the area of nowadays China. I'm not saying the Chinese people lived there at that time. God knows what race lived there. But that was some important battle.